Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Forno and Forum. I'm your host, Nat Garofalo, and today I'm very excited. We're doing one of my favorite recipes of all time. This is something that my mom used to always make for us and for my sisters and I and my dad for dinner when we were growing up. So delicious. I've dubbed it, I've named it after her. So I call it Veal Costantina. So this particular dish is, it's very, very few ingredients, but the flavors that come out from it are absolutely exquisite. Very, very tasty. So let's go over the ingredients here real quick. The star of the show for this one is a veal round bone chop. Now, you can also go with a veal shoulder. Essentially, the goal for this one is a cut of veal that has the bone in it, because that's where the flavor comes from. Speaking of the flavor and the bone being pivotal, I've made this recipe a few times for my girlfriend. And each time I've tried to make it for her, I could not find veal at the store, so I had to pivot. One time I pivoted to lamb, and another time I pivoted to a cut of beef that had the bone, a round bone in it. Turned out just as good, because the focus of this recipe is to essentially braise the meat and really make it tender, and then the juices that it creates are served over pasta, and that is easily my favorite way to have pasta, is with the juice from this recipe over the pasta. It's absolutely delightful. And it's been tasty whether I've done it with lamb, whether I've done it with beef, or whether I've done it with the intended protein, which is veal. And again, this is Forno and Forum's recipe for veal Costantina, named after my mom. So without further delay, also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. And as always, the full recipe will be down below in the description with full ingredients and the process. And then, as always, please comment down in the comment section if you attempted the recipe, if you liked it, and any modifications you may have made. So again, our ingredients, we're starting off with the veal round bone chops, some garlic, and then this is about a quarter cup or so of fresh parsley, quarter cup not chopped. I'm probably going to chop it up just a teeny bit for the dish. You don't have to do anything fancy with it, because it's going to wilt down in the pot anyway. Kosher salt. Oregano, black pepper, and olive oil. And then you notice off to the side here next to the main pot, I've got a small pot of water, because as the cook goes on, you might run out of liquid, and then you might have to add some water into the pot. And you don't want to add cold water, because that'll stop the cooking process. You want to add warm water. So I've got a small flame going on here. And the reason why you might run out of water is that, much like low and slow barbecue, this is all dependent upon how tender the meat is or is going to be. So a cut of meat may take longer than another cut. So while the recipe typically is about an hour, hour and a half for this particular recipe, it could take a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, depending on how the quality of the meat is and how tender it will turn out. As far as testing the tenderness, and we'll show this in the video later, you can do that with a couple of ways. You'll notice that the meat will start to pull away from the bone itself, and then if it's fork tender, you're good to go. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the recipe. All right, I like to start off on a pretty hot flame just to get the olive oil heated up and the garlic nice and sauteed. It's about 2 tablespoons or so of olive oil. You want to nicely coat the bottom of the pan. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but the bottom is nicely coated with the olive oil. You want to get that nice and heated up. And then you want to brown your garlic in the olive oil. While that starts browning, I'm going to go ahead and open up the package of the veal. Just a little bit closer to the video, you can kind of see the round bone that I'm talking about. So anything that's got like that, because the marrow is what's going to create the really good flavor for this dish. And then unlike the tomato sauce recipe, this one, the garlic's gonna stay in there for the full ride. All right, so while the garlic heats up and sautés, and do a little bit of a rough chop on the parsley. So I don't know if you can hear it through the microphone or not, but the garlic is starting to sizzle a little bit, which means our oil is starting to heat up. So we're just about ready for the meat. And not gonna lie, much like cilantro, parsley is one of my favorite herbs to work with, just because of the aroma it gives off. I love it, it's great. So then what I like to do is much like whether I'm grilling a steak or if I'm cooking a steak in a cast iron skillet, I like to season the meat directly because I don't want the meat to be without flavor. So just a little bit of salt just to cover the surface of the veal. And then I'll match the same with the black pepper and the oregano. Now, in case you're curious, we are going to, salt and pepper and oregano to taste the juices that will be formed from the meat, but that'll be a little bit later on in the process because there might be sufficient seasoning on the actual meat, which will get into the juices. Okay. All right, our garlic is starting to brown nicely. It always helps to have your tools nearby, and if not already ready to go. So I like to have the pan pretty hot so it's a nice brown sear on the meat. And the browning shouldn't take too long. Some awesome flavors in here. Now while that one side browns, you want to salt or you want to season the other side of your meat. And again, like I've mentioned in earlier videos, my family, we don't really like measure the ingredients too much. We kind of eyeball it, and it's just kind of it's like Zen seasoning. We kind of do it by feel. Now we're putting the black pepper on top as well. And then some more oregano. And by the time I get the oregano on, the other side should be nice and brown. Now it's gonna stick a little bit, that's okay. That's gonna create some nice sticky bits, as I like to call them, on the bottom, which you'll loosen up later in the cook with a wooden spoon. So as you can see, the first side is nice and brown. So we're going to let the second side brown up a little bit, and that's when we'll add in our parsley. And then we're going to start off with half a cup of water to kind of get the stuff off the bottom unstuck, and then start the process for creating the juice. And then like I said in the beginning of the video, this one's going to cook for about an hour, hour and a half, depending on how the meat turns out in terms of tenderness. And it's going to be cooked primarily on low to medium low. You don't want to burn it or anything like that. It's like I said, it's like barbecue, low and slow. You want to go have a nice steady pace with it. And you want that sear because there's going to be a lot of flavor in that sear, but you don't want to burn it either. And this is the base recipe, right? As I mentioned with the veal, I've done it with other proteins as well, lamb and beef. Also, this is the base recipe in terms of just about everything. I've done it with dry white wine before in the past, so you can switch this up and do some modifications and kind of make it your own, but this is the base recipe for it. At this point, we should be good for the parsley. And this is just nice, fresh Italian parsley, rough chop. Like I said, prior to chopping, it was about a quarter cup. Okay. And you want to mix this up in there. Okay. And we want to put in about anywhere from about half a cup of water. Yeah, right around half a cup of water. Essentially, your focus here is you want to make sure if you can get the meat pretty close to covered, that's your goal. Because the water as it simmers is what's going to tenderize the meat for you. Because the water is going to tenderize it from underneath from direct contact with the meat, but also the steam that it creates when the lid is on is going to help tenderize that meat as well. So from here, I'm going to do a little bit of a dash of oregano to kind of season the water a bit. And then we'll taste it later to see where it's at in terms of salt and pepper, because obviously the liquid's going to reduce a little bit, so that's always going to concentrate the salt a bit as well. So you don't want to over salt now because you can't go back. Obviously, like I mentioned, we've got our pot of water here just in case we do start to run out of liquid and we need to add more in. But for now, I'm going to put the lid on. This guy is going to start to simmer and tenderize the meat. And then we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to check back in, see where we're at in a little while. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to check on our veal. It's been going for about an hour and a half, hour 35 minutes or so, and I checked it just a second ago and it was looking pretty tender, but we'll take one more peek at it here. You'll see the steam rising up out of there. Okay. So here's what we're looking at in the pot, and you'll be able to see it's pretty tender. Everything's kind of been falling apart in here. Some bits are actually spoon tender, so it's actually pretty good. This is kind of the doneness you're looking for. I had to add a little bit of water. This one took a little bit longer than expected, but this will go on nicely on some pasta. You can see I've got some pasta on the burner in the back there. I've already isolated some so you can see how this would present on a plate. So I'll show you real quick. Normally, you would put the pasta in a serving bowl and then dump the meat and everything on top, but for the purposes of the video, I'll just present this way for you. So you'll throw it on top of your pasta. You'll get some of your juice on there. Let's see how I can do this without spilling everything. Okay. All right, there's some of the juice on the pasta. Toss this up. Okay. There is your veal Costantina. Now I'm probably going to put some more water, some of the pasta water actually in the pot here. We like to have a little bit more juice, and then once that's nice and incorporated with the flavors of the veal, we'll be ready to serve. Again, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Forno and Forum. Today, like I said, we did veal Costantina, which can be done with either the veal, which is the primary cut to do it with. If you can't find veal, lamb works or beef works. Just make sure what you're using has, whatever cut you're using has some kind of a bone in it, because the majority of the flavor comes from the marrow that's going to be in that bone. again, thank you for watching. So please put your comments down below, like the video and subscribe. And if you do make this at home, feel free to check back in and leave your comments on how you like the recipe, any modifications you may have made. And we look forward to having you here next time on Forno and Forum for our next recipe. Thank you.